future has arrived, and it's in the past. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. This right here, the Time Meddler, is a pivotal moment in the history of Doctor Who. Over the course of 2 years and about 80 episodes and 16 or so stories, there have basically been two types of stories. There's been the pure historicals, which I love, and there's been the science fiction stories, which I also love. With today's story, we get the first pseudo-historical. It's the template for nearly half of the stories going forward, and here's how it works. Up until now, stories set in a historical time period have been pure historicals. In other words, the only science fictional element in the story is the fact that the TARDIS arrives and our main characters are from another time and place. Other than that, everything in the story is based on historical fact, give or take. So you have stories like Marco Polo or The Reign of Terror, which are clearly meant as an educational program to teach children about a particular time and place in history and significant people in history. With the Time Meddler, we get the first story in which there is a science fictional element interfering with history. In this case, in the character of the Meddling monk. Now, to step back from that for just a moment, this is also the first story in which the entire supporting cast has turned over. With Ian and Barbara leaving at the end of the last story, this is Stephen's first episode as a true companion of the Doctor. He's stowed away on board the TARDIS at the end of the events of the previous story, and is discovered by the Doctor and Vicky at the start of this one. Stephen is understandably skeptical about the fact that the TARDIS is actually a time machine. He doesn't believe it for a moment. And so the Doctor sets out to prove him wrong. As it so happens, the TARDIS arrives in 11th century England in Northumbria. In fact, specifically, the TARDIS arrives in the year 1066. What's so important about 1066? Well, if you ask my wife, everybody knows that that's the year of the Battle of Hastings. Now, I don't know that she's right that everybody knows that. I will tell you that I didn't know that, and I've seen this story before. But when I mentioned this morning that today's story was set in the time of the Battle of Hastings, she immediately said, "Oh, 1066. Here I am on record as saying my wife is way smarter than I am. I love you, honey. So anyway, getting back to the importance of this story. As I previously mentioned, this story has the character of the Meddling monk. As of the first half of the story, his true identity hasn't been revealed, but it is plainly obvious that he's from some point in the future. He has several anachronistic items, like a wristwatch and a phonograph, and manufactured cooking utensils. And he's also at the beach scanning for the arrival of the Viking warriors coming to invade England. This event in English history is the precursor for King Harold, new King of England, which leads directly to the Battle of Hastings. So what do we have? A significant historical setting, some educational elements to teach the children about the Viking invasions and the Battle of Hastings, and we have a science fictional character up to some sort of nefarious plot. I mean, you might say that the title of the story gives it away. The Time Meddler implies that there is someone meddling with time. But bear in mind that in this era of Doctor Who, the overarching story titles weren't part of the broadcasts. Each episode had an individual title, and the overarching titles were never broadcast with the story. So in this story, the fact that the monk is plainly a time traveler was a significant surprise for a historical story. This is just a huge, huge moment in Doctor Who, and I highly recommend this story. If you're going to seek out a First Doctor story, this one is right up there in my list of William Hartnell stories to check out. And it also happens to be one of the last ones of the era that is fully complete. Once I finish this story tomorrow, I enter a sequence of stories that are either completely or significantly lost. For the next better than 2 years of the program, I'll be watching primarily reconstructions of lost episodes, although seated in there are going to be some animated reconstructions that I have yet to see, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've had them sitting on my shelf for months and just been waiting for this opportunity to get there. So that's all I have for you today. Tomorrow I would like to talk a little bit more about the character of the Meddling monk and why I love his character so much. So tune in tomorrow. I'll see you there.